Good afternoon. We are very happy to have Holger Herpun from IDM here. We thank in the first place IDM for sponsoring the event, for sponsoring the conference. IDM is our official program sponsor. As part of that, they've got their own slot for talking about how it works when they are bridging dictionaries with Open XML Publishing Platform. And I don't want to eat more of your time, so okay, please go ahead.
Thank you for the presentation. So yes, we'll talk about bridging dictionaries with Open XML Publishing Platform. So we'll focus on some areas in DPS that we have been working on here recently. The main points will be about XML publishing, about links, and about teamwork and workflows in DPS. DPS is an open XML publishing platform. It's based on XML and XSD and Unicode, so it supports any schema. So it's what we call schema agnostic. And in addition to this, DPS comes with special support for some XML standards. So it's, for example, DITA, TEI, and the JAS standard. So DITA is a standard that has been around for some years now and has gotten very popular for textbooks and this kind of content, structured content in a table of content based format. TEI is a format that we have been working with for many years in particular in US for historical projects. So what we have done now is that we have made DPS also compliant with an earlier version that the American customers has been working with called Pubman. So somebody here may know Pubman. So it's also an XML-based system and based on TEI standard. DPS is also it's based on industry standards. So XSLT, XPath, XQuery. HTML5, CSS3, and JavaScript, and is fully configurable. So since it is DPS, it is XML agnostic, you can customize your projects for a given presentation you want for your content, for the indexing you want to have of the content in for the search feature, for the sorting, so the sorting of entries in the database, and also for the links. So the DPS supports a number of different links. So I'll talk more about this later. It also has an interface, so it's compliant with any XML editing tool. So DPS comes with an entry editor and a WYSIWYG online editor. But in addition to this, you can plug on DPS any XML editing tool. If you have some tool that you are used to work with and is your favorite XML editing tool, then you can integrate it to DPS. DPS is fully browser-based. The interface is fully browser-based. It works on smartphones and tablets as well. It works anyway if you're working on a Mac or on a Windows PC or Android or iOS. It works on all these platforms. And it comes also with an open and customizable platform via DPS API. And it comes with support for writing data processing scripts, so you can access the content via script processing. And the scripts can retrieve content from the repository, and it can do manipulations of the content, and it can store the updated content back in the repository via the DPS API. And it's based on many popular open source technologies, so there's no commercial software integrated in DPS. It's all open software components and software that has been developed by IDM. DPS can be integrated with Oracle or Microsoft SQL Server, but by standard it comes with integration with PostgreSQL. So that's the database that we use for all the customers we host DPS for. And there's one of our customers is using Microsoft SQL Server, and another one is working with Oracle. So it also works just as using Microsoft SQL Server and Oracle as a standard SQL database. DPS is also highly scalable. This is also something we've been working on here over the last years to make it even more scalable. So we believe now that we have a system that is suitable both for big dictionary projects with commercial publishing houses who have a very big team of lexicographers working with DPS. So, for example, OED project is working with DPS, but it also works with small projects and within an academic environment. So we have a scalable solution both from functionality point of view, from architectural point of view, and also from pricing point of view. So I'll go through now a number of different use cases of how you can use DPS. So this use case here will start with, so it may be a little bit untraditional here in a dictionary environment, but it starts with an authoring environment where the authors, they deliver content in Microsoft Word format. So it's not really dictionary use we are focusing on in this use case. It is more educational content. So it can be a grammar book, for example, or a vocabulary book. And they are typically produced in Microsoft Word format. So this is the assumption in this case here. So it's not because DPS is customized to work together with Microsoft Word. It's just an example of a format that you can deliver the content in. And then in DPS, you can run a script for ingesting the content in the DPS repository. So in this case, it's a script for converting Word to XML. When you do this conversion, the way a Word file is a single file that contains all the content of the document and of the publication. Let's call it a publication. And in addition to this, it also contains all the images that are used in the publication. So what happens when you run the script for ingesting the content into the DPS repository, it is that it converts the content into the XML format that you want to have the content in. And in this use case here, it's assumed that it's a data format you want to have the content in. And it stores the content then in what we call a publication. A publication is just a document that contains the links to the documents that links to files that contains the content of the document. So it's linking to the different components of the publication. It's similar to a manifest file for an ebook. So ebooks also have a similar file that just contains link to all the documents and makes up the ebook. So it's completely parallel to this. And then it's the document. So in this case here, it's assumed that the conversion will convert the Word file at chapter level. It will cut up the chapters into individual documents. So each chapter in its own document. And doing this can be a big advantage if you for later maintenance of the content, because when you have the single chapters in a document on its own, then you can have a team of people working on the publication. So one user is working on chapter 1 and another one is working on chapter 5, and they can work in parallel without disrupting each other. So this decomposition is a good concept is our experience in when you move content from Word format into XML format. And so we have the publication, we have the documents, and we have the media files. So all the images you have in the Word documents, they are stored in a media repository or media database, media project in DPS. And this media project contains all the images. It means that the images that were before stored inside the Word document, they are now stored as individual images in a media project. And it means that the images, they can be reused by many publications. They come from one specific publication, and of course they are linked to the documents in this publication, but they are stored in a media database, so they can be reused in any publication, in any document you have in your system. So this is what we see here. It is the decomposed structure where we have a view of what I call the publication document. So it is a document that contains links to all the documents that make up the content of the publication. And you can see they are, so it's simply one for each chapter of of the documents, and there is a text associated to a title associated to each document, and then there's an edit icon. So if you click on the text here, then the document will open up in a view mode, and if you click on the edit icon, then it opens up in the editor. And what you see here, it is a general DPS interface. So we have a title or DPS toolbar at the top. So the light blue banner you see at the top, it's what we call the DPS toolbar. And then we have a content panel here in the right side here, and we have what we call a contextual navigation panel here on the left side. So I'll tell more about how they work later. So the decomposition we are making, so just to tell a little bit more in detail what we are doing, it is that we have all the documents that were in the Word file, all the chapters that were in the Word file, they are stored as individual documents here. So each of them having their own color in this diagram. And then we have the publication. So the publication, it'll be this publication here. It is representing the Word file that we have uploaded, because it contains links to all the documents. And you can see that the links, they are in a hierarchical structure. So the linking also make a representation of the hierarchical structure of the chapters in the document or in the publication. And there can be several publications for mapping to the same documents. So it means that you can have one composition of the documents in one publication, for example, for the print format, and then you can have a different selection of the documents in the publication for the ebook format, or for example, simply because the ebook has a much lower, typically will have a much lower price than the print book will have, and therefore it can be a good idea to package it differently from how you package the print book. So that's the idea in the publications, that you can have different linking to the documents of a publication, and without changing any content, you just make a new publication map in order to make a different selection of the documents for a specific delivery format. Here we have opened up the publication in the XML editor, so you can see the XML editor here. It opens up inside the interface, and you have access to you can see in the XML tags in the publication, they are visible in this format here. And each of these topic ref elements here, they refer to, it's a link to a document. So you see the documents here, you can select a chapter here, and you can click the delete button, and then you are taking out this chapter of the publication. So, and you can also insert links to new documents you have in your repository. So you simply, if you want to insert a link to a new document, you insert a new chapter link and a topic ref, and then you search for the document you want to link to in the repository, and select the document, and then press return, and then you have inserted a link to a new document. So composing and decomposing composing publications is very quick and to do, and so we call this repackaging the content. So you can repackage the content very quickly in the publication, in this publication document. This is, in this case here, we have opened up one of the documents, and we can see now that I can see the document here in my content panel, and here in the contextual navigation panel, I have links to all the documents that are linked to from my publication. So that's why we call it the edit linked documents here. And you see the in this case here, you see the XML tags. So this is a configuration option. If you want not to see the XML tags because the editing you are doing is simple text editing, then you can just switch off the display of tags, and then you'll see the document without any tags. So this is where you update the content of the documents, and when you are updating the content and the structure, there will be a check against the schema that is associated to the document. And if you introduce something that is not in accordance with the schema that you have defined for the document, it will immediately tell you by giving color indications, and you'll see in the panel here in the right side, you will see that you have validation errors, and then you can open up the panel and you can see what kind of error you have. So as I said, you can open up the interface to DPS also on a smartphone. So this is just showing that we preview or proofread the view of the document. So before I saw it in the editor, here I view the content of the document from the repository. So it's not in edit mode. I can't edit the content here. I can only view the content and review, check the content, and I can do this on a smartphone or on a desktop or wherever I want to view it. And it is in particular this view mode where it makes a lot of sense to see it on a smartphone. There's no typing involved here. So the next step here in this use case, it is that now we've finished the editing or the publication. We've finished updating the documents. We have proofread the content. It has been approved by the reviewer, and now we want to deliver the content in ebook format. So I can run a bulk operation on the selected publications, and I can say that I want to export it in a given format. So in this case here, I've selected EPUB format, and when I start click on the OK button, then it'll start converting the content to ebook format, and the next step will show a page where you can see all the output files. So you can see a log file of any messages that has been generated by the script that is converting it to ebook format, and it'll say whether the script has been successful or it failed for some reason. And if it has been successful, then you can download the file, or you can just, the file is delivered in a hot folder. So the consumer of it can just take it from the hot folder, but you can check the content before the consumer starts using it from the hot folder by opening it from the DPS interface. So this is just an overview of the Open XML publishing in DPS. So we have here on the left side, we have authors producing content in Word format. It goes into DPS. Here we have editors, and we can have automatic processing scripts that can clean up and enrich the content with links and illustrations and metadata. And we can have proofreaders and subject matter experts who are proofing the content in formats that are suitable for the proofreaders and the subject matter experts. And you can, when you are, if there are proof corrections, then you will do the corrections directly into DPS. There's no need to make the proof corrections on paper. Of course, you can also do that if that's the most suitable model, but you can then enter the corrections directly in DPS. You can, when you're happy with it, then you deliver the content in the delivery channel specific format. So in this case, it'll be in ebook format. And then you can also have people reviewing the content in ebook format if that's what they prefer to work with, or they can get it can be exported in a format that can be opened up in Adobe InDesign, and they can proofread it on print pages and put the corrections on the print pages and send them back, and then the editors will put them into XML, and you just re-export to Adobe InDesign to introduce the proof corrections. The mainstream publishing channel sits online dictionary websites, web apps. It can be licensed content in a dedicated format, so it can be a proprietary format, it can be DTA, DocBook, TEI, JATS, or HTML5. So you just have a script for each of the format you want to export to. It can be ebooks, it can be PDF files, and it can be Adobe InDesign files that you use for producing print. And in DPS, the content is stored. So as we talked about before, we have documents, we have publications, and we have media projects. So that's the sections in DPS where the content is stored. And it's checked that the content is compliant with the schema. It's not that you can save content that is not complying with a schema, but there will be messages that is indicating it, and you can run a search and you can find all the documents or all the entries in the database that is not complying with the schema that is associated to the entries. This is the search panel, so you can in DPS you have a search panel where you can search on the name and title of the documents, but you can also search on any combination of structure and content. So there is a very advanced XML search query feature in DPS. You can make search queries in a DPS specific format, or you can do it in XQuery format, whatever you find most convenient. This is the view panel. So here we see the view of the entry in a style that is called standard. So you can see that you can choose a standard style in the drop-down list, and in the drop-down list you can have access to 1, 3, or 5, as many styles that is relevant for you in your project. So this is fully project specific. It's not something that comes with a system. It's something you define for each project. There's the XML edit panel where you can see the tags here, and it's keyboard-centered editing. And here you see the Oxygen web also used, but it can also be the standard DPS entry editor, or it can be the standard DPS online editor. The schema checking, autosave, and you can do the editing in WYSIWYG mode without the tags if that's what you prefer. This is a link to an image in a media project. So you simply you can see here I choose the project in the drop-down list, and then I can search for the image I want to link to. I say here that I want to search for the image of dromedary, and I'll make my search, and it's found my image, and I select the image and say OK, and then I've created a link to an image in the media database. And when I view the document, I can see the image. This is, in this case here, I want to link to an image that is not yet in the database, so I can open up a folder on my hard drive. I can select the image I want to link to. I open up the link feature in DPS, and I drop the file here, and then this file is stored in the media database, and I can link to it. So when I press OK, I've created the media in the media database, and I've created a link to the image. So this is another type of linking. So it's composing a page, and in this case here, it was presented last year at Tbilisi, eLex in Tbilisi, and it was also presented at eLex in Tallinn in 2013. So the case here is that we have a dictionary, and then we used the sketch engine to extract example sentences, the source section, and the word sketches. So each of them have been stored in their own project, and here we link to the entry itself, and we link to the examples, the source generated content from sketch engine, and to the word sketches as supplementary information that is associated to the entry. And here we see a preview of the entry, so you can see that the content is clearly separated from the editorially checked content at the top here, and this is the auto-generated content that has been extracted from the sketch engine. So it can be extracted from any corpus. It's not specific for sketch engine. It's just showing a feature in sketch engine. This is the workflow where you can track progress, and this where managers or workflows, they can create batches, so they can create a batch of entries of documents, and they can assign it to a user. And they can, when they create it, the batch will get a start date and a completion date. And then on this page here, you can see the progress of the batches as the users are working on them. So this is a page only for the project managers in the project. It's not for the individual people working on the project. This is the page for the people who are working on the project, where they see the documents that they are supposed to work on. So it's all the entries they have in their batches, or it's entries they have opened for editing for just doing quick changes to the documents if they have the access rights to do that kind of changes. Typically, they will only have access to work on, or in many projects, they will only have access to work on the documents that are in their batches, and it's managed by the project manager. Then this is a version manager. Here you can compare any version of documents. So you select the versions you want to compare. And here on the next page, you see the changes you have introduced. So I've inserted the image file. I've changed the definition. I can see it in the green here. I've inserted the translation and a cross-reference to another entry. So everything that is shown on green background, it is things I've added. If I've deleted content, it will be shown on red background. So we're working on an extension to this feature, so you can see the changes both in XML format, but also in WYSIWYG format. But it's not yet available. This is add comments, so you can add comments to entries. Comments can be shared between the editor and the reviewer. So if you have a batch, it'll typically be so that the editor edits the content, and when they're finished editing the content, then it's automatically removed from the home page of the current user, and then it appears on the reviewer's page where he can see what he is supposed to work on, and then it stays on the reviewer's home page until he has approved it, or rejected the update, or said that it's incomplete, the update. If it says it's incomplete, then it disappears from the reviewer's home page and go back to the editor's home page. So, and the editor can then see in the comment what they are supposed to change. So this is how the comments typically are used. And this is how you can typically view the content of a comment in edit mode. And then there's a release management. This is where you can handle in metadata a specific version of a document that is used for a specific purpose. So you can, from DPS, you can deliver content to many different delivery channels, and each of them can get or publish their own version of it. And this is what you can manage in the metadata you have in release management. Which version of a document was used in a publication for this delivery channel on this date. You can always go back and you can re-export exactly the same content again. So this is DPS where we are. These are the components we have, and so I'm short of time, so I'll just jump quickly to the next steps. So these are the next steps we are working on here for 2017 and 2018. So it's a dynamic corpus for auto-generating content, and we're working on direct publishing out of DPS. So up till now, we have exported the content, produced an image outside DPS for publishing, and what we are working on it is that we publish with links that are going directly into DPS. So it means as soon as a content update is approved and is indicated that it's ready for publishing, it is available on the website. And we are working on user profile management. So thank you.
Questions?
I'm a little curious about the API. What's the protocol or language of the API?
Well, it's an API you can access via Perl scripts. So there's an interface for accessing all the features of the API via Perl scripts.
Okay. And you've talked about the user access permissions privileges model. How complex or granular is that for different tasks? What's the task breakdown of things that can?
So you mean for when you define a user in the system?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a user management feature in it in DPS where you can define different classes of users, and for each class of the users you define a given profile. So typically all the people who are editing the content, they have the same profile. So you can use the same class for a group of them, and it goes to the number, to the features they have access to, and to the content they have access to.
So it's sort of a feature by feature and content by content. Okay, cool. Thanks.
There are no questions. I have one very short. So most of the dictionary writing systems were desktop-based applications in the past, but there were more and more desktop-based applications shifted to web-based. I think there were reasons why the dictionary writing system kept being desktop-based. But what do you see as the future of this business? Will it become shared work in a Google Drive style or any other, or do you think it will keep its slightly old-fashioned, but as I said, I think I see the reasons for it, desktop-based orientation?
So I think that I mean, things change all the time, but for the moment, I think that the direction I see it is that the content will be more and more tightly integrated with digital publishing of the content, and therefore it has to be in a shared repository in a format that is suitable for being used by digital publications in websites and in apps. So that's my assumption.
And the actual editing, do you think it will be carried out also online, or?
Yeah, that's my impression.
Okay, if there are no other questions, thank you very much, Holger. And let's have a coffee.
Yeah.